Alright.
You cameraing me?
Huh?
Is this a button? You guys don't know what's going on. The peptides will automatically detox your body. Give me 2 seconds, let me clean the room and we'll get you in.
We can do breast lifts, we can do stomach lifts, all kinds of stuff.
We're done with this conversation. We're not done.
I have my paramedics license. I've been certified. I'm a PA. I've gone to all these schools.
We have our credentials.
The state's making me a school.
We haven't done anything wrong.
We run a legitimate place here.
Do you ever stop lying?
I don't lie.
In January 2017, ABC 15 in Tempe, Arizona, published the work of a very extensive undercover investigation, one involving a man many knew as Dr. Craig. Craig Scherf was a businessman, a very successful one at that. He had a couple coffee shops, was in real estate, opened up a meat market, and was just always in the next entrepreneurial endeavor. He owned a spa, and many clients of his continually came back for his services. But although from the outside looking in, this seemed like a normal business, there was one major issue with this spa he ran. It wasn't just any regular spa. It was a medical spa. And Craig, who clients referred to as Dr. Craig, was not a doctor, let alone a health professional, period. In fact, he was a convicted felon, and this medical spa was just one of the many unlicensed facilities he had opened up. From forged degrees to fake licenses, many didn't know that the very person they received laser hair removal and even Botox from was not licensed. And for almost 20 years, Craig was able to build several successful businesses from the East Coast to the West, all without the necessary qualifications. 2004, 2011, and 2017, all years in which Craig was the subject of major undercover investigations, caught on camera. But it was after that one final investigation in 2017 when things would be revealed that would quickly prompt authorities to take action. As we go down this case, we'll uncover the secrets that allowed this ruse to be kept up with for so long. And in the end, we'll discover if these fraudulent schemes are still happening today, or if there are any new endeavors picked up by Craig. It might surprise you, so you'll definitely want to stick till the end to find out. But just to introduce myself, my name is Petal Palmer, and on this channel I post anything medical, mysteries, and crime. If that is something that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing if you end up liking this video. But before we get into this case, I'd like to get into the sponsor of today's video, Raycon. Life definitely gets hectic, and sometimes you simply want to just cancel out all the noise around you. That's where the Everyday Earbuds by Raycon come into play. With active noise isolating features, the Everyday Earbuds are able to drown out the loudest of sounds. These have been a gem whenever I'm on the subway, okay? I can actually hear my music through the screeching train, and I just love these whenever I'm doing my hot girl walks outside to honestly take my mind off of the fact that it's negative 10 degrees out. The battery life is amazing. It lasts 32 hours, and just 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery. They come in a variety of colors. You just know I had to get the lavender earbuds along with the blue water protective case because I just love summer and anything water related. Plus, if you're not liking your Raycons, they offer a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked. If you'd like to try a pair for yourself, please go to buyraycon.com/petalplumber to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon. The link will be in the description. Thank you, Raycon, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into this case. In 2004, there was a woman named Marsha who wanted to reduce her cellulite. She was from Scottsdale, Arizona, so she began looking into clinics in the area to get this treatment done. Eventually, she came across a clinic in Scottsdale named Esprit, and after looking into the services they offered, she contacted the clinic to look into potentially doing treatment there. This clinic offered services such as laser hair removal, microdermabrasion, and in Marsha's case, cellulite reduction. And after seeing the good results the clinic promoted, she decided to pursue this treatment for the first time in 2004. She got in contact with the clinic to discuss more with them. There was one gigantic problem though. A lot of the treatments offered by this clinic were ones that required a license to be able to perform. Thing is, the person running this clinic actually did not have a license because rather the owner was none other than a man named Craig Scherf, a person who we'll discover would be the facilitator of several different extensive and fraudulent schemes. Craig Allen Scherf was born on July 27, 1966, likely somewhere in Oregon. He went to Hidden Valley High School in Grants Pass, Oregon. Between 1984 and 1987, Craig was enlisted in the Marine Corps before receiving an honorable discharge. While there's not a lot of information regarding his service, what is known and what you'll see is that it would be the experience he had while serving that would inspire a lot of the false stories that he would soon spread in this case. When Marsh met Craig, he told her that he not only was a physician's assistant, but that he was a licensed EMT, and he told her that he went to the Mayo Clinic once a month to do an ER rotation. None of these were true, but he sounded very convincing. His office looked legit, the walls had all types of certificates on them, and there was nothing that raised any red flags about him. Marsha was going to be doing something called vacuum therapy, a non-invasive treatment that uses a suction technique to help lift the skin. And she had a good experience while there. Overall, she paid around $2,000 on treatments at this clinic. In fact, she even ended up recommending him to about 30 women who lived in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. This included her friend who actually spent upwards of $15,000 on treatments at the clinic. Marsha just had so much belief in the success of Craig's services that she even encouraged him to start expanding this business to open up more clinics. And that he did. He ended up heading to a town in Massachusetts called Lenox, just a little over 2 hours west of Boston. And after renting out a space at a salon called Sheer Design Salon, he too ended up attracting customers from there as well. People over there really liked Craig too. However, they soon realized that Craig might not have been who he proclaimed himself to be. Now, at this clinic, Craig only accepted cash, and about 20 women described paying Craig thousands of dollars for treatments at his Lenox clinic.
These women claim he took thousands of dollars to treat them.
And it had to be cash.
He should pay for it, and he should be stopped from exploiting other people.
A lot of these treatments were progressive ones that required more than one appointment to fully finish the entirety of it. But they described that at some point, Craig had disappeared because he instead had packed up his stuff and left his clinic in Lenox, returning back to Scottsdale, Arizona, and leaving behind all of the clients with unfinished treatments. One day in 2005, Craig had been at his Bella Esprit clinic when a potential client had come in asking for the services he offered. This client was interested in looking into cellulite reduction treatment, and Craig was more than happy to discuss it with her. The thing is, what Craig didn't know was that this person was not a potential client, because rather this person was a producer from ABC 15 going undercover to investigate the activities at Bella Esprit. This producer was working under investigative journalist Abbie Boudreau, who was leading the report on Craig. And it was at this clinic where the undercover producer captured footage of Craig lying about his credentials.
I have my paramedic's license through the state of Arizona. I've been through all those courses. I've been through the courses with the state of California, Colorado, and also with New Look Surgical Center.
Okay.
So I've covered every requirement that you can think of up and beyond.
He told her that he was licensed, and he even stated that he offered both breast lifts and stomach lifts. After these conversations with Craig, and after confirming that he did not in fact have these credentials, it was finally time for Boudreau to confront Craig with the actual facts.
You impersonated a federal marshal according to your personnel file at the police department.
What? A federal marshal?
That's you, isn't it?
As you can see, during this confrontation, Boudreau cited documents that proved that at one point in Craig's career, he even pretended to be a federal marshal. Because as it turns out, the whole reason they were even investigating Craig in the first place is not because his clinic seemed suspicious, but it was because this wasn't the first time Craig did something like this. In fact, he was well into his fraud career way before these clinics even opened. The day before his 23rd birthday, on Wednesday, July 26, 1989, Craig was hired by the Phoenix Police Department. This was only about 2 or so years after he left the Marine Corps. About 2 weeks later, on Tuesday, August 8th, Craig finished his basic training, and soon enough, he began working as an officer with the department. For the better part of a year, things seemed to be relatively fine with his employment as a police officer. But it would be barely past his 1-year anniversary at the department before he began committing his first acts of misconduct. From Monday to Wednesday of November 26th to the 28th in 1990, it was determined that Craig had handed in, quote, court overtime requests that were false in nature, and he, quote, was untruthful to a supervisor about the details of an investigation. Nothing too serious came of these incidents as Craig remained employed with the police department. However, it was only just less than a year later, in July 1991, when Craig was let go from his employment with the police. As part of his job, Craig worked off-duty for an American Express office in Phoenix. As a backup security, he had a gun on him, and his main duties essentially involved making sure the place was safe. Craig started his shift on Wednesday, January 23rd, 1991 in the morning. He was working in plain clothes and he had his official gun holstered in a shoulder holster. Ideally, Craig wouldn't need to and essentially wasn't permitted to take out his gun unless there was a threat presented in front of him. And on this Wednesday morning, there was not a threat presented in front of him. However, it was at 9:16 a.m. when Craig took out his gun and aimed it at the front door of the office. Craig was working alongside a resident security guard named Phil Bradley. And when this happened, Phil was like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? Is there a threat? And he looked over at the front door to see who or what Craig was pointing his gun at. But it was as he turned his head to the front door when Phil saw absolutely nothing. There was nobody at the front door. There was no commotion, nothing. There was absolutely no threat at the office. But for some reason, Craig decided to draw out his gun. This incident wasn't only seen by Phil, but it was also caught on the security footage. And so after this happened, Phil went on to tell his security supervisor for the American Express, Ed Kowalski, what just went on. Phil explained to Ed that there was absolutely no one outside the door, nor was there any other reason he could think of that would have required Craig to pull his gun out. And after he explained the situation at around 12:30 p.m., Ed called the sergeant in charge of both the office and the Phoenix PD about it as well. The sergeant was named Larry Lemons, and on the phone, Ed told Larry that Craig had, quote, displayed his weapon for no reason. As Ed was telling Larry this, Larry was like, okay, thank you for letting me know. Ed expected after telling him this, Larry would make sure Craig was not going to show up to work the next day. But it was that very next day when Ed actually contacted Larry again, because contrary to what he expected, Ed allowed Craig back in the office. On the phone, Ed insisted to Larry that he did not want Craig working at that location again. And Larry was confused. He was like, oh, like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't think his gun showing was that serious. But it was after Ed listened to Larry saying this when Ed realized Larry misinterpreted what he told him on the phone the previous day. Because when Ed told Larry that Craig displayed his weapon, Larry interpreted that as Craig's weapon was simply showing. Because mind you, he was just wearing plain clothes with a shoulder holster on. So initially all Larry told Craig to do was put on a coat over his gun. But it was after he realized Craig literally whipped it out at random when Larry told Ed to tell Craig that he was relieved of his duties for the day. After they hung up, Ed went up to Craig and was like, look, you can go home for the day. This just has to do with the gun incident. And Craig was like, whatever, I understand, and he left the building. Even though Craig made it clear to Ed that he understood why he was sent home, it didn't take too long for Craig to call Larry to complain about what had happened. And not just complain about what had happened, but refute that he did anything wrong. He told Larry that he had in fact not pulled out his gun and that he was also very angry about the accusation. So after this call, Larry and Ed contacted each other again, and Ed not only again explained that Craig had been caught on the security footage, but he offered to give the footage up to the police department if they needed it, which they in fact did do. Just the next week, on February 1st at 10 p.m., a sergeant by the name of Sergeant Setambra, alongside the Phoenix PD, went to look over the footage. And after doing this, they obtained a copy of the video to use in a full investigation. Lo and behold, the footage did indeed show Craig pulling out his weapon, pointing it out the door for no reason. And it was just the following day, on February 2nd at 1:24 a.m., when Craig was served a notice of investigation regarding the unnecessary weapon draw allegations. When asked by Setambra about the incident, Craig said that he did in fact recall telling Larry that he never pulled out his gun. However, what Craig didn't recall was actually pulling the gun from the holster. He claimed he did not remember doing that whatsoever. And so they showed him a still from the security footage and were like, look, here's you on camera pulling out your gun for no reason. And Craig was like, of course, I don't doubt that I did it. I just don't remember doing it. It was after this when Setambra had Craig write him a memo, which is a document that provides additional information on a case. And he subsequently concluded the meeting. Just the following week, around midnight on Saturday, February 9th, Setambra and Craig had another meeting, but this time alongside Lieutenant Davila. At this meeting, Craig was asked if he was aware that there was security camera in the lobby of the American Express, and he stated that he had in fact noticed and seen the TVs attached to it before. Now, after stating this, Davila asked Craig if it was a regular occurrence for him to pull out his weapon and aim it at things, but Craig told him no. He was like, no, this isn't something I usually do. Just the next day, on February 10th, around 6:10 in the morning, Setambra contacted Phil and asked about the incident, to which Phil again reiterated that there was no one outside of the glass door when Craig aimed his weapon at it, and that he felt that there had been no good reason for Craig to pull the gun out, stating his guess as to why he might have pulled it out as being because he was, quote, bored and fidgety. Overall, the investigation concluded that Craig had violated 3 different policies of the department. 1, firearms will never be unnecessarily handled or displayed. 2, relating a false, deceptive, or misleading account of an accident. And 3, conduct unbecoming of an employee that which tends to bring discredit on the department. But despite this incident, something like this still happened again, because they found out that just the next week, on February 17th, 1991, Craig again unnecessarily displayed a firearm, this time at a car dealership in Medford, Oregon. And then on June 11th, 1991, they found that he had, quote, used offensive and inappropriate language while speaking to a female victim over the phone. Craig was officially dismissed from the Phoenix Police Department and allowed to resign from his position as peace officer on Friday, July 26, 1991. And the Arizona Law Enforcement Officer Advisory Council Board officially voted to revoke his status as a certified peace officer on Tuesday, November 17, 1992. For the next decade after this, Craig seemed to lay relatively low. But once 2001 came around, he again was up to another scheme, this time affecting one particular person. Her name was Tiffany Lewis, and at the time, she was 31 years old. For many years, Tiffany had mental health struggles. A few years prior to this time, she was diagnosed with what was referred to at the time as manic depression, but this is just now referred to as bipolar disorder. Due to this diagnosis, according to later court documents, Tiffany was described as, quote, particularly susceptible to manipulation, coercion, and abuse. To further help her out with her everyday living, her parents, Margaret and Larry Lewis, ended up setting up an RBC Dane Rauscher brokerage account for her. By August 1st, 2001, Tiffany's account held around $250,000, and the account a lot of the times were her main or even only source of income. But unfortunately, Tiffany had come across Craig, and after finding out she had access to that account, he immediately saw nothing but dollar signs. Craig told Tiffany that he was a stockbroker, and he slowly became close to Tiffany, gaining her trust as a good friend and making it seem like he wanted to look out for her. On or around Wednesday, August 22nd, 2001, Craig had met up with Tiffany and told her, look, Tiffany, as a stockbroker, I can effectively manage your money. There's this company I'd like to invest your money into. This company was called Centec 21. And with how much she trusted him as both a stockbroker and a friend, she told him, yeah, I think this is a great idea. Very shortly after, Tiffany ended up giving Craig money from her account. But this wasn't just any little amount of money she gave him, because Craig was able to convince her to write him a $200,000 check from her account. After he received this, Craig deposited the check under an account with the name Scherf Enterprises, doing business as Arizona Barter Exchange. He then went on to take his time and craft a fraudulent letter signed August 24th, 2001, stating, quote, Ms. Lewis, as per our meeting on August 23rd, 2001 at 4 p.m., Scherf Enterprises will invest $180,000 into Centec 21 in return for $90,000 IPO stocks. Although Tiffany sent $200,000, this document listed only $180,000 as being sent. And even though the document has Tiffany's signature stating that she agreed to this, she most definitely did not. This document was fake. But nonetheless, he signed off on this document and the money officially was his. Scherf Enterprises was in fact a real corporation in Arizona, one he was running alongside his wife at the time, a woman named Christy Scherf. But Centec 21, that company did not exist. Craig had hoped in doing this scheme, he would be able to keep the $200,000 to himself, no issues. But fortunately, it didn't take long before somebody had caught on to the shady things he was doing. Throughout that next month, Tiffany continually reached out to Craig to get an update on the status of her investment. She was asking him how it was going, if there's any accounting for it. She asked if he had any copies of the Centec 21 shares, any additional information, just anything. But every time Tiffany would ask Craig questions about it, he would just kind of shrug it off and not provide her any information. It was finally just a little over a month after taking her money, around October 4th, when Tiffany told her parents about this investment. And it was just about a month after that, around November 1st, when Tiffany's father called Craig on the phone to get a better understanding of what had happened and how everything's looking regarding the funds. During this call, they had arranged to meet at a set time that day, and Tiffany's father went to the location and waited for Craig to show up. He stayed there and waited some more, but Craig didn't show up. After being stood up, Tiffany's father called Craig and was like, hey, where are you? We were supposed to meet. And he demanded that Craig met with him. So finally, Craig agreed and he ended up showing up to their home to discuss the funds with both of Tiffany's parents. At this meeting, Tiffany's parents asked for the accounting of the funds. But again, Craig just kind of brushed it off and he refused to give them any information. So they said, look, we would like to get the money returned to Tiffany. But even still, he refused to return the funds, and he left it at that. Her parents at that point knew Craig probably was up to no good with the funds. And this was only probably more confirmed because it was just the next day on November 2nd when Craig wrote a check to Tiffany's father for $1,500. Tiffany's mother, Margaret Lewis, described the situation to Boudreau with ABC 15.
At some point, Tiffany was convinced by Craig that he was a broker and could help her invest her money.
For the next month, they continued contacting Craig, but after a month after that, on about December 1st, they again demanded that the funds be returned. Still, nothing. These requests were something that went on for months on end, but it was finally on about February 2nd, 2002, they told him, look, if you don't return Tiffany's money, we're going to pursue legal measures. Despite the pressure, Craig told Tiffany's parents that he knew what he was doing and that he apparently made $11 million worth of transactions in the past couple months. He insisted that he was helping Tiffany get into the world of investments because he cared about her, and he assured the family that Tiffany for sure would start making back her money sometime around March 2002. This, of course, was far from the case. Tiffany was not going to be making back any money. In fact, he most definitely did not care about her, because it was actually around that time in December 2001, he not only continually played with her funds, but he also ended up giving Tiffany prescription medications that were not hers, despite him knowing her medical condition. This medication was one he received from a friend, in which he gave to Tiffany a labeled container that came with no identifying notes or instructions.
Craig knew very well that Tiffany was sick. He brought the medication to her.
He brought her medicine? Prescription medicine?
Yes.
According to the report from Abbie Boudreau, this prescription medication that he brought her even apparently landed her in the hospital. March came and nothing happened. And it was on November 5th, 2002, when representatives from Titus Bruckner and Barry PC, a business law firm at the time, sent a letter to both Craig and his then wife, Christy, on behalf of the Lewis family. In this letter, they informed Craig that if the funds were not returned with interest, the Lewis family would take legal action to the fullest extent possible. He did not pay this back, so they indeed went to court. During the trial, the court determined that Craig did in fact have to pay the full amount back, plus some additional. And even still with these orders, Craig still did not. So in 2009, the judgment was refiled and the total amount owed to Tiffany was upped to $390,000. Currently, I'm not able to find if this was ever paid. Now, fast forward to 2004 with Marsha. Craig now has a laser clinic opened in Scottsdale, and he gets confronted by investigative journalist Abbie Boudreau.
Are you certified through the state of Arizona?
Yes, we have our credentials with the state of Arizona.
Who are your credentials with?
The radiation board, that's who has them. We haven't done anything wrong.
Do you ever stop lying?
I don't lie.
Bordeaux proved that Craig lied about being a physician's assistant to a physician named Dr. Kent Myers, who upon being contacted told her, quote, "I am not now nor ever have been medical director for any enterprise affiliated with Mr. Craig Scherf." ABC 15 sent all the information over from their report, and several state agencies were said to have begun looking into Craig. The Arizona Medical Board had even stated that they turned their investigation over to the state attorney general, the county attorney, and 2 local law enforcement agencies. However, all Craig had to do was close down his business, and absolutely nothing came from this.
After our interview, Craig Scherf sent us this letter. In it, he says none of his clients complained about his cellulite treatments, but he does say false claims made by his clients caused him to close his business.
Getting away with the laser clinic scot-free allowed him to continue his schemes in the laser field. For the next few years, Craig seemed to lay a little low, but it was about 5 years later in 2010 when he found himself in some more trouble. During that year of 2010, a woman named Karen Cole sued Craig, claiming that he had scammed her for $2,500. Because she stated that Craig had opened up a fake laser school and he was enrolling students in the school, having them work on clients under the impression that they would learn how to do laser treatments and that they would receive a certificate in the end, only for this to not happen. 2 other women shared similar stories, stating that Craig promised them that if they paid him several $1,000s, the laser school would be able to get them fully licensed in Arizona. Kind of like how he did with the previous clinic, he made the school seem legit by plastering the walls with a bunch of fake degrees and certificates, including one that showed he had, quote, a doctorate in kinetics, and even just using fake degrees from legit colleges such as the Rocky Mountain Laser College. But when he was caught, the lawsuit stated, quote, "In fact, the school was a ruse of defendant Scherf to get cheap labor and customers, was not itself upon information and belief certified, nor did it have any qualified people to provide instruction in the skill." This school of his was pretty short-lived before he hopped into his next idea, one inspired by some major changes in current events at the time: the sale of medical marijuana. Medical marijuana was officially legalized in Arizona after the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act was made effective on December 14, 2010. With this legalization of medical marijuana, there was a subsequent boom in cannabis clubs all through 2011. Selling the product. The problem is, in order to dispense medical marijuana, the facility had to be licensed. And despite the legalization, during that entire year, 2011, there was not one facility that was licensed as of yet to dispense it. Any cannabis club that opened up in 2011 were unregulated. In fact, the first actual state licensed dispensary of medical marijuana in Arizona was called Arizona Organics, located in Glendale, and this only opened up on December 6, 2012. A New York Times article from July 22, 2011 explains, quote, "The law does not permit the sale of marijuana outside of nonprofit dispensaries, but because the state has yet to approve any such outlets to sell marijuana, other ways of getting the drug are being tried." And Craig, seeing this opportunity present at hand, jumped at it as quickly as he possibly could. In May of 2011, Craig opened up a cannabis compassion club called Yoki A Ma in Mesa, Arizona. At this club worked two men, Richard Ray Hagerman and another man named Mark Silginski. On the Wayback Machine, the site from the Yoki A Ma club in Mesa claims, quote, "Yoki A Ma is the leader in medical marijuana with the best strains of medication. The doctors, nurses, and counselors of Yoki A Ma will assist you in the improvement and control of pain management for your daily lives with the use of natural medications and healthy protocols. Yoki A Ma will assist you with the paperwork forms needed as per state laws." This club was doing really well. It was only a matter of time before it expanded, because it was officially on Friday, July 28, 2011, when the doors of Yoki A Ma opened up in Tempe, Arizona. This clinic was much larger, eventually becoming the main one for the business. At this location worked a few people named Renee Bruggeman and Roger Murray. And at some point, Craig also opened up a club in Las Vegas, which was helped and being run by his new wife at the time, Nicole Marie Clemens. Overall, Craig and Nicole moved around between all three locations. The Tempe Club was located at a strip mall on East University Drive in Tempe, Arizona. But what stood out about this club was that, unlike the others, it consisted of two businesses owned by Craig that were directly beside each other in Suites 105 and Suite 106 in the mall. Suite 106 consisted of Yoki A Ma, which was the cannabis club. Suite 105, on the other hand, consisted of the Zen Health Club, which was a clinic in which Craig again offered laser treatments, injections, and cellulite treatments, just like he had done in 2004. On Tuesday, July 5th, 2011, Detective Lily Duran of the Tempe Police Department, or Tempe PD, received a complaint from the City of Tempe Community Development Department regarding the Yoki A Ma business in Suite 106. The complaint claimed that the tenants of Suite 106, who were registered under Zen Health Centers 2 and Zen Health Centers LLC, were running an illegal cannabis club. As mentioned, according to the site, the club hadn't opened doors yet until July 28th. However, they were getting registered and announcing their opening online, as seen on their website from the Wayback Machine. When Tempe PD looked into the business, Craig was listed as the manager of the establishment, with 4 other members listed as staff. And on their website, he had himself described with letters that appeared to be different degrees and certificates, and a bio which stated, quote, "Dr. Scherf carries a doctorate in muscular kinetics and medical laser technology. Dr. Scherf has medical degrees from National University and has served in the armed forces as an air medic. Dr. Scherf has studied Eastern and Western medicine, is certified in acupuncture and herbal medicine." Soon enough, they began an undercover sting operation of the club. They had different detectives disguised in plain clothes to pose as customers of Yoki A Ma. Between September 7th, 2011 and November 22nd, 2011, they went to the Suite 106 at Yoki A Ma as members, going back for a total of 8 times. And each time, they just discovered more and more incriminating information. On the same now defunct website of yokiama.com, there were listings for medications, all of which were different strains of marijuana. How Yoki A Ma worked was that all members were required to own a valid medical marijuana card. Members would join the club with a payment of $100, with $35 being the membership fee and $65 being the member entry fee. Thing is, this club's policy worked with a pay each time model, meaning this $65 entry fee was due each time somebody came back to the club. Members would pay the $65 fee before being taken into a different area of the business to pick out a strain of marijuana. The marijuana would then be measured or weighed out before being given to them, and after writing out what they got, they would leave. For each entry, a member would get a complimentary 1/8 ounce or about 3.5 grams of marijuana. Members were allowed to return to the club 4 times total each day, still paying $65 each time. The premise of the member fee was essentially an attempt at a loophole on Craig's part, because at the time, since it was illegal to exchange money for medical marijuana, Craig was attempting to sell marijuana by instead selling a membership with a club fee. At the club, they had a poster up advertising that for club members, Yoki A Ma could grow each member their own medical marijuana plants for the price of $850. When 2 undercover detectives went to the club on October 10th, 2011, Mark even offered that members can have the chance to grow 7 plants for that price, explaining that this was a deal they were offering because of the fact that it was taking so long for the licensed dispensing of marijuana to occur in Arizona. And he further told them that the leftover marijuana would then be donated to Yoki A Ma, which is something that Craig himself even mentioned later on, stating that the marijuana was donated from various places. When asked about where they were getting the marijuana from, Richard said it might have been coming from Northern California, but then he immediately changed the subject. And they definitely were openly aware of the possibility of them being caught, because 3 days later, on Thursday the 13th, the undercover detective told Richard that their prices were too expensive. So Richard replied, telling him that the lawyer was the one taking all the money and that the prices were set by either Craig or somebody above Craig. But just before they left, he further went on to tell the detective that if they were to cut the prices, they'll let them know by email, and if they ever get busted, they'll have a, quote, fire sale, and the first one that comes in gets whatever they want, which was very close to actually happening. On Monday, October 17th, 2011, the main detectives were monitoring Craig's movements via electronic surveillance and noticed he was in Las Vegas, where the 3rd club was. They saw him leave Las Vegas around 7 to 8 p.m., headed straight to Arizona, taking no stops. He eventually got to Wickenburg, Arizona, and once he did, some detectives hopped in their vehicle and started following him as he drove through the city of Peoria. But it was during this drive when Craig was pulled over by an officer from the Peoria Police Department, who began doing a traffic stop based on Craig's speed and a lack of mud flaps. At the time, Craig was the passenger in a larger truck that, according to local laws, required mud flaps behind the tires to make sure that the tires wouldn't fling rocks at the cars behind them. The driver was his wife, Nicole, who complied with the officer. Craig stated that they had recently bought the truck, and the officers asked if they could do a search of the truck, which Craig did give consent for them to do. And when they did this, the police not only found a usable quantity of marijuana, but they found 4 different firearms, all loaded. Now, of course, for those who are registered in the States, it is legal for them to have a firearm. However, both Craig and Nicole had medical marijuana cards. And because they did, this meant that they were not legally allowed to carry weapons, as being a medical marijuana card holder forfeits their right to bear arms under federal law. When the officers saw this, they were like, hey, why do you have these weapons? To which Craig replied, I'm actually a public safety officer instructor and a retired law enforcement officer. So they did a record check on Craig, but they would eventually come to find out almost 20 years prior, on November 17th, 1992, the Arizona Law Enforcement Officer Advisory Council actually took a vote and chose to revoke his status as a peace officer, as mentioned. So they caught Craig lying. Overall, over the course of a month, starting from September 7th, the two main detectives had spent around $1,950 on a total of 120 grams of marijuana throughout their visits. The two detectives vouched that there were no other benefits to joining, just the complimentary marijuana each visit. So essentially, he was just fully selling marijuana, naming it as a membership. After confirming through these visits that there were no added benefit to the membership outside of the 1/8 ounce of marijuana per visit, Tempe PD moved forward with busting Yoki A Ma. On Wednesday, November 30th, 2011, Tempe PD served 3 search warrants all at the same time. 1 and 2 were at the Zen Health Suite 105 and Yoki A Ma Suite 106 in Tempe, and the third one was at the Yoki A Ma in Mesa. And at around 11 a.m., 12 p.m., they headed to these exact locations to detain those involved. Officers headed to Suite 105 at the Zen Health Club in Tempe, where they found both Craig and Renee. Renee was a certified laser tech and worked mostly with the laser side of the businesses, working to prep patients for hair removal and also doing paperwork. They detained Craig, who, despite not being allowed to carry, as mentioned, was found to be armed with a 9mm Glock 17 handgun that was holstered and concealed. Renee was also detained and found to be armed with a semi-automatic weapon in her purse. Likewise, inside of the health club, they also found a rifle, magazines of ammunition, shotgun shells in a belt, marijuana, and other drug paraphernalia. In Yoki A Ma, just next door in Suite 106, the cops came in as Roger Murray was selling marijuana to a customer named Gary, and also in there was Nicole Scherf. Both Nicole and Roger were detained, whereas the customer who had a medical marijuana card was questioned but not arrested. Like Craig and Renee, Roger was also found to have a loaded revolver concealed on his hip. And just like in Suite 105, they found notable amounts of marijuana, drug paraphernalia items, and ammunition in the suite. After being read her Miranda rights at 12:13 p.m., Renee ended up telling police that she'd been volunteering, not working at Zen Health or Yoki A Ma. And she also told them that she was never a formal employee who took pay. She did, however, tell them that Craig paid the rent for her apartment, which was around $1,000 a month. And when asked if she ever worked with any of the marijuana, she stated that she did in fact help measure it and that she had her own medical marijuana card despite not using it. When asked about the reasoning for them opening up the club, she stated that when they opened up the Zen Health Club in Suite 105, many of the people who came in were patients with Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia, and other illnesses that were similar. So they felt that they needed to do so. And when she was asked if these patients were often transferred to Yoki A Ma next door, she stated that some did, but others didn't because 1, some didn't have a medical marijuana card, and 2, they didn't want marijuana to be the treatment for their health problems. Renee also confirmed the $65 per visit model, stating that there were some benefits to the club, that they did not have a growing space as that would have been too expensive, and that Craig claimed the marijuana came from local donations and growers. Nicole over in Suite 106 had also been read her Miranda warnings at 11:30 a.m., but she immediately requested a lawyer and was asked no more questions. Also inside Suite 106 at 12:47 p.m., Roger was read his Miranda warnings. Like Renee, Roger also told the officers he was a volunteer. He told them that he got no pay and needed to pass an interview with Craig and obtain a medical marijuana card for the job. And Roger stated that while he understood $65 was supposed to be a membership fee, To him, it rather felt like an exchange of money for the marijuana. Roger also stated that he didn't know where the marijuana came from or where the money went after it was paid. When the police headed to the location in Mesa, they found Richard Hagerman and Mark Soginski, who both were detained. After being read their Miranda warnings, Richard told the cops that he was advised by his supervisor to not speak to the cops if they showed up. So no other questions were asked of him. Mark, on the other hand, however, told the cops that he had only been working at Yoki A Ma for 2.5 months. He stated that Craig owned the business, and Mark even explained to them the whole process of how they obtained marijuana. It was at this Mesa location where the police confiscated marijuana, a shotgun, computers, documents, and cameras. Finally, at 1:26 p.m., Craig agreed to speak after he was read his Miranda warnings. He told police that there were no records kept on where the marijuana was coming from, but that it was donated and not bought. He also claimed that he would apparently get the marijuana tested at a lab at Arizona State University for safety. As for the Las Vegas location, Craig claimed that Las Vegas PD would regularly come around and partake in the club. He even claimed that the DA and congressmen had also come in. These were not true. And for the rest of the interview, Craig continued to lie about several different things and made false stories, whether it be related to the firearms, the cannabis club, whatever. For example, he stated that the club also gave cooking lessons of how to cook with cannabis oil, even though that didn't happen. And he also stated already disproven ones, such as saying he never carried a gun with him or that he'd never taken one into the Yoki A Ma, despite him having one on him during the arrest and it being caught on camera that he brought one in. And this all was spread across pages 15 to 20 of the investigation document. After talking for 36 minutes, at 2:02 p.m., Craig requested to call his attorney, which he ended up doing. They allowed him to have a private conversation with his attorney. But even after doing this, he still voluntarily spoke to the police, answering their questions, making more untrue claims, even eventually stating that the club apparently didn't make much money. On December 6, 2011, the police also went to the home of Krista Sogg, a former employee who worked for Craig, to question her. During that conversation, they found out that Craig promised to pay Krista $5,000 a month for a job. But after 2.5 months, he hadn't paid her, meaning he owed her around $12,500 total, which he didn't pay. And because of this, she ended up quitting. They estimated the Yoki A Ma locations in Tempe and Mesa to have produced an estimated $80,925 in revenue in a 5-month period. However, some drama also went down with the payments regarding the commercial spaces he rented. They confirmed Craig rented out the space for his clinics, but that he never put in an application for a permit with the city of Tempe to open the location. Instead, he claimed it was a warehouse space for Zen Health. At the time, in 2011, Dave Biscobing of ABC 15 wrote an article stating that Craig had a $619,189 judgment against him because apparently he hadn't paid his multi-year lease. And what was also very interesting on top of all of that, when they were doing the search of Yoki A Ma, they came across a police badge from the Phoenix Police Department. But this wasn't Craig's badge from when he worked there. Rather, it was the badge of police detective Aaron Jameson. And the significance of this find is that this very detective was a co-worker of Craig's back in 1990 when he was with Phoenix PD. And sometime that year, Aaron had left his uniform in the locker room whilst writing a report. And when he came back, he found that his badge was no longer with his uniform. No one was able to find it, and everyone at the station who was present at the time of the disappearance claimed that they had no idea what had happened to it. Come to find out, 2 decades later, it was in the possession of Craig Scherf and was only returned back to the police detective in 2011 during the Tempe investigation. Ultimately, in the end, for everything he'd done regarding the cannabis club, Craig received 2 years of probation. He again seemed to lay low for a little bit, but it was only just a few years later when Craig was most certainly back at it again. This time, returning back to something he was familiar with already, but also this time facing a lot more trouble than he had done in the past. Starting in January 2015, Craig opened up medical spas operating under the names My MD Clinic, My Laser Center, and My Body Lipo Laser in Tempe and Scottsdale, Arizona. These clinics weren't much different from the one in 2004. They offered weight loss treatment, cellulite treatment, Botox, Juvederm and Dysport injections, laser hair removal, and human growth hormone treatments. Unlike the last time where he pretended to be a physician's assistant, this time, Craig pretended that he was a doctor, even going by the name Dr. Craig. And he actually obtained all of the medical tools and equipment for this clinic by faking that he was associated with real physicians. These clinics had a good online presence. A lot of customers were able to purchase Botox and Dysport injections on Groupon before coming into one of the clinics to get the treatments done. One of the victims he treated at the clinic was a man named Mario Della Casa. Mario went to the clinic to receive 100 units of Dysport injections to treat facial wrinkles. When he got these injections done on the left side of his face, there was a noticeable bump, but Craig assured him that the bump would go away in 15 minutes. Come to find out, that bump did not go away. In fact, it was now looking bruised.
He stuck needles in you? He focused in on this side here, and that's when my face was just...
Because of this, on Tuesday, October 18th, 2016, Mario sent a picture of his face to Craig, stating in part, quote, "That bump on the side of my face that you said would go away in 15 minutes hasn't gone anywhere, and it appears that something is going on inside of my face, dripping down from the shot. It looks worse, horrible. When you look at it, it's there. It's strange because it's not a bruise. What can I do about this? Also, I know you said it may take a week or so to feel the difference from the other spots you injected, but I feel nothing at all, and I still have all the movement. Is that normal? Please see attached photo and let me know what to do. I am to do a show on the 27th in New Jersey, and I can't have this on my face." To which Craig replied, quote, "I have never seen anything like that. I can fix it if it is a bruise with the YAG laser, but it's hard to understand without seeing it direct. Dr. Craig." Eventually, Craig would tell Mario to fix this by using a vacuum machine to stimulate blood flow in his face as it healed.
He says that when you go home, put a vacuum cleaner thing on your face as well, actual vacuum cleaner, and suck on your skin, pull on your skin, because that's going to create circulation.
To put a vacuum
cleaner on my face.
This sort of bruising on Mario's face is not normal for that sort of injection. It's far too severe. And eventually, as many others would, he would come to find out that Craig was not the doctor he made himself out to be.
He's not a man, he's a monster, and this monster needs to go to jail. He's harming people. It certainly wasn't Botox, or it wasn't Dysport, or certainly, I don't know what the hell it was.
This was the same treatment that another victim, Sharon Kirby, believed that she was getting the following month on Friday, November 18th, 2016. But she too had an odd experience with Craig.
There was bruises, there was bleeding. To me, he assaulted me.
What do you think needs to happen?
Oh, he should be in prison.
She had gotten injections on 8 spots of her face from Craig, and she remembered while there, Craig spent a lot of time boasting about his credentials and even stating that he was a Navy SEAL, that he studied Eastern medicine, and that he was a doctor in Afghanistan, all of which she eventually would also come to find out were not true.
I remember looking at all those letters below going, wow, he should have had BS behind all these letters.
Many other victims later listed in the indictment also reported having bruising or injuries after receiving facial injections from the clinic, and one who even reported having scarring returning after Craig performed laser treatments to remove their stretch marks. It was after running these clinics for 2 years when finally in January 2017, investigators swooped in on this case, again conducted by ABC 15, but this time with investigator Dave Biscobing. Last time, Craig got away with doing something like this as he was able to just close the clinic and move on. But this time, they made sure to actually do something to stop what Biscobing called the Botox bamboozler.
I've been doing reconstructive surgery for a while now.
They sent 2 undercover producers to try to see what was going on. For one of the undercover producers, he even tried convincing her to get the treatment, offering to allow her to watch him perform the treatment on other clients.
I'm Courtney.
Oh, okay. Give me 2 seconds. Let me clean the room and we'll get you in there.
Okay.
Go ahead and squint for me. Okay, see the lines right here? Relax. Now we can inject here with a little bit of Botox, just a little bit, which is going to pull this back like this. Using the ultrasound there, it's basically just activating the collagen that you already have in your body. Okay, that's the safe thing to do. People do inject stuff down in here like filler. I don't recommend it because it will affect the eyes later on down the road. I've been doing reconstructive surgery for a while now. I don't want to tell you all that. Okay, what's your choice? You have to feel comfortable with it. I've been doing this for 19 years on the cosmetic side, so I've seen people like you a lot. Don't worry about it. You're not the first. I have a couple girls that they're coming back for like the 3rd or 4th time. If you want to sit in and watch them, they have no problem with people watching because I've done it before.
However, for the next undercover producer who went in for human growth hormone treatment, Craig quickly noticed the camera just before the meeting concluded.
We have people say they get rashes. I have not seen it, and I've been doing it for, I've been working on patients for 11 years using HCH.
Oh, you've been doing HCH for 11 years?
Yeah, that way we check you.
Okay.
We don't send you home with all of it. We make you come in because that's our requirement.
Okay.
Because we want to be safe and we want to stay within federal rules and regulations.
All right.
You camera me?
Huh?
Is this a button?
Button.
Yeah, it's got looks like a camera.
Oh, it's the button.
Oh, okay.
Finally, it was time to confront him. When Biscobing went to bust Craig, they called the clinic only to be told that Craig was away out of town. But Biscobing literally told them that he knew they were lying, and he chased down Craig, hiding around the building to confront him.
My name's Dave Biscobing. I'm a reporter with ABC 15. I need to get a hold of Dr. Craig because we've got some concerns that he's performing some procedures he's not allowed to perform. Is he available? You're not telling me the truth. We know he's in today, so we're going to come to see him in about 15 minutes. We're going to be walking in his door in about 15 minutes. Can you let him know?
A producer then pointed out that they saw Craig right outside the van, and the team quickly ran outside, going up 3 flights of stairs to catch up to him.
Dr. Craig, I'm Dave Biscobing with ABC 15.
Hold on, I'm on the phone. It's not Dr. Craig, it's Craig. Okay.
Heard you write Dr. Craig on people's business cards.
What's it?
You've written Dr. Craig on people's business cards.
Yeah, that's what people call me because I'm a laser tech, and that's what I do. So,
You're doing Botox.
No, I'm not.
We have undercover video of you doing Botox.
That's good.
Where are you getting it from?
I'm not getting it from anywhere.
Well, you're giving it to people.
I'm not giving it to
Look at this right here. This is your thing. Craig Scherf, my MD clinic. You're doing Botox.
Have a nice day.
No, we're coming in. We gotta talk to you.
Come on. I do laser procedures.
Are you licensed to do laser procedures?
Yeah.
Not in Arizona, you're not.
Yeah, I am. We've been licensed. They license the machines, and our machines are licensed.
You need to be licensed to do it.
We are.
Just come show me your license.
We don't care. The license are on state with the state.
They're not. I checked your name.
Have a nice day.
No, Doc. We got to talk to you about this. I'm not treating people.
I'm not.
Stuff you're not allowed to be doing.
No,
that's dangerous.
I have naturopaths that do it, and I have other doctors that come in. We run a legitimate place here. That's it. Plain and simple.
This is as legitimate as your medical marijuana club?
We don't have a marijuana club.
You ran one. You got busted for doing it in 2012.
Well, you're wrong there.
Look at this. Look at this. This is you. Craig Scherf. You pled guilty.
Have a nice day.
You pled guilty.
Have a nice day.
Come on.
At some point, while the questioning was going on, Biscobing and Craig stepped onto the elevator just as a woman was stepping out. After the conversation, this woman pulled Biscobing aside, stating that her name is Tracy, and explaining that she overheard the conversation just as she was leaving Craig's office after he gave her Botox. So Biscobing again confronted Craig when he came back outside to retrieve his clinic sign, but Craig claimed that Tracy was lying.
So everyone's a liar. Everyone's a liar?
I'm not saying anybody's a liar.
Well, why did she say you put a needle in her?
And you want to know what's also very interesting? At the same time as he was running the laser clinic, Craig also owned 2 coffee shops and a meat market. He also does have a page up as a real estate agent, with it currently stating that he has 21 years of experience, but I'm not sure anything much other than that. All information collected by ABC 15 was again shared to relevant agencies within Arizona, and the police were made aware of the situation. ABC 15 began airing segments about Craig that same month in January, and they also were warning the public about him and his scam. It was very soon after this first run-in with Craig and Biscobing when the clinic closed down, leaving a very interesting note on the door, which read in part, quote, "The staff of My MD Clinic has decided to close our doors for good. After years of research and development, we have received a federal stamp on the immune support supplement that we as a company have been completing research and protocols to enhance overall healthy living. The immune support supplement is very important to the future health and wellness of our community. The supplement will be available online in health food stores this month." This supplement did not exist. After the police and other agencies investigated the case, it was finally on March 19th, 2017, when Craig was arrested by police in Payson, Arizona, in one of the coffee shops that he owned called My Cup of Joe. Craig spent a few months in Maricopa County jails after his arrest. One of the people who too was in the jail spending nearly 2 months there with Craig was a man named Brandon. Brandon was later interviewed by Dave Biscobing, and he described to Biscobing that Craig said the reason ABC 15 was coming for him was because of an alleged jealous ex who worked there, describing, quote, "He said that he dated, I think it was dated, one of ABC 15's producers briefly, and that he ran into her at the grocery store, and he had his work shirt on, and she saw the name of his business. They didn't end things good." It was confirmed none of the producers at ABC 15 had a romantic history with Craig. And Brandon also confirmed that Craig often lied about the military and cop careers of his past, as he'd mentioned before. Meaning, he still continued with the false stories even when he was in jail at that time. With Brandon further describing, quote, "I've met some pathological liars in my day, but no one as believable and as smart as he is. It just makes you wonder, when does the lying stop?" In total, Craig was facing 29 charges as he went into court, including 12 counts of unlawful practice of medicine, 12 counts of endangerment, 2 of fraudulent schemes and practices, 1 theft, identity theft, and racketeering. Between the physical evidence, plenty of video footage, witness and victim testimony, and also the lies that he was caught up in, the evidence against Craig was overwhelmingly strong. And on Friday, August 11th, 2017, he pled guilty to 2 counts, count 13, which is fraudulent schemes and artifices, a class 2 felony, and count 16, which is illegal control of an enterprise, a class 3 felony, which, by the way, were written in his plea agreement as, quote, "non-dangerous, non-repetitive offenses by the criminal code." The other counts had been dropped as part of the plea deal. Mario, the victim who was bruised after receiving what he believed were Dysport injections, was not pleased following this, but just looked forward to sentencing, stating it'd be well-deserved if Craig received the maximum sentence.
"I'm not pleased. I'm not satisfied. I won't know what I'm feeling until the day of sentencing. He looked me in the eye when he was injecting me in the face. He needs to look me in the eye while he's being sentenced as well."
On Friday, October 6, 2017, the first of Craig's sentencing hearings began. And on Friday, December 8, 2017, Craig Allen Scherf was sentenced to 8 years in prison and 5 years of probation, with the factors considered including his pathological habit of lying and his likelihood to reoffend based off of his past actions, lawsuits, and other convictions. There's definitely a lot that went on with this case, and it's just interesting seeing how dedicated of a person Craig was. He was a very dedicated businessman. He opened up so many businesses, which from what is shown, looked quite organized. He made sure to print his own white coat with logos and his name and degrees. He got the equipment. He was driven to get things done, which could have been great. But instead, he went down a path of deception, which put others in harm's way and seriously affected them. It was just really interesting seeing that entrepreneurial drive, but then the way that drive was actually being used. Because remember, he had 2 coffee shops, a meat market, and probably many other business endeavors throughout the years. If he just stuck with those, fine. It's just that with the health related businesses, you're gonna have to do the required training and get your licenses. Because when you put the health of others in your hands, you can't just do that without the training. There's a reason licenses and training programs are put in place. Many of the concerns mentioned in this case with having a person who wasn't licensed doing these treatments were the risks of improper hygiene methods, such as syringes being reused or even the use of harmful chemicals. And let's just say, even if the proper hygiene practices were followed, it still doesn't stop that if something terribly wrong were to happen during the treatments, you're not going to know what to do in that situation like a trained professional would. Instead of putting the energy towards exit plans in case you get caught, it'd definitely be of more merit to put the energy towards seeing how you can get licensed. Now, I'm not sure when, but Craig eventually was released from prison, at least sometime on or before 2023. And as of today, it does look like he's actively trying to turn his life around. On September 24th, 2023, he graduated from a program receiving a certificate in culinary arts. And on October 8th, 2023, he received a ServSafe Food Protection Manager certificate, allowing him to officially work in this field. Likewise, on October 21st, 2023, he received a certificate of completion in a layperson naloxone administration course. And on October 22nd, 2023, he completed a 72-hour training program to become certified as a peer support specialist. So he definitely is now making the effort to get the certifications needed to do the work he wants to do, which is a good outcome regarding him, because not only are those good accomplishments, but it also importantly keeps everyone else safe. I hope everyone who was treated at his clinics are doing fine. I really hope Tiffany from earlier on is doing well also. I couldn't find any updates on the status of the money she was owed. It would be extremely hard to trust anyone after something like this happens, whether they did have physical complications like Mario did, for example, or not. I just really hope that if there is any mental scarring for the victims, that they can continue to heal. And I hope that if there were any physical scarring, that they can or have already healed. And for anyone, if you ever plan to get any kind of cosmetic treatment done like laser or Botox, you are allowed to request to see the provider's license. And just be sure to check the provider's credentials with the respective licensing board, especially if anything seems a little bit suspicious. But yes, that is it for this case. What are your thoughts on this video? Do you think Craig served enough time? Do you think he should have served more? Please comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos on medical cases, crime, and mysteries. Bye now.